Hi there, this is Catherine with Enfolded Heart Music. Welcome back to the tutorial on Butterfly Dream. This is part 2 of a two-part series that is walking through the song, again, Butterfly Dream. This is a Lyre piece on the album, which is also entitled Butterfly Dream. If you haven't checked out the first part, I would certainly encourage you to do that. And if not, then I'm assuming that you've already gone through the first part, and so we can just jump pretty quickly into the second part. Again, this is intended for those who want a little bit extra help learning this piece, if that's something that you'd like to do. There's sheet music available. I am going to be using the sheet music as a reference point, telling you what measures I'm at, and giving a nice little sort of roadmap on the way through the song by using the sheet music and having that as a common reference for us both. In the first part, we went through sections A and B. A repeats itself 3 times plus an extra sort of half, and part B only is played once in full. So today we're going to be doing parts C and D and putting the whole song together. So this will be a little bit probably of a longer video. We'll see how long it actually lasts, but I think we can do it in 2 parts rather than in 3. So let's jump in. We're going to do a little review first, and then we'll go into some new content. So review coming up. Okay, we're back now to do a little bit of a review. As you can see, I have altered my camera, so hopefully you can get a nice visual of the strings a bit better than some of my previous videos. Again, if you have any suggestions of ways to help make the visual or audio, but particularly the visual, even more accessible to you, feel free to point that out to me, and I'd be happy to take that into consideration in future videos. Okay, so again, last time we did parts A and B, and after A and B, basically that took us from the first measure, measure 1, all the way through until measure 22. And so what I'd like to do is go ahead and just play that section for you so that it's really clear of where we're at and how the transitions should sound. I'm going to be reading the sheet music and therefore trying to do it exactly as is written. There may be a few very small differences with the left hand, so just be aware of that. I will try not to do that, but I don't typically play it with exactly the same notes every single time, especially in the left hand. The right hand typically, but anyway, so I'm going to play that through. You might hear a little bit of a page flip as I go through it, and then we will start part C. And again, I'll stop a few times throughout when it seems like a good time to play the whole section that we're in so that you know the order of the piece. All right, so here we go. Measures 1 through 22, parts A and B. I won't be using a metronome, and I'll be playing it about the tempo that I personally think it sounds very nice, but you're welcome to use your own interpretation and judgment on that. All right. Okay, so that's, again, parts A and B. I left out what I'll call the pickup notes into part C, which are the last 2 notes of measure 22. All right, so make sure, again, before beginning new content, make sure that you're quite comfortable with these 2 sections, A and B. Otherwise, you're going to be going a little bit faster than you need to, I would say, into getting new content. And what ends up happening is that we start practicing our mistakes, practicing our hesitations, because we're trying to have too much content before we've really kind of scrubbed maybe some of our trouble spots. Okay, so once you've got that quite clean and are quite comfortable with it, come back and we will do part C. Okay, part C. Part C is going to be from measures 23 through 30. And this we only play once in the piece. Let me get my metronome. I'm sorry, we play it twice in the piece. We play it twice in the piece. And as we talked about in the first part, that left hand is going to be quite consistent throughout. So we're going to take a look at the left hand first before adding in the right hand. We can see that the rhythm is really very, very similar, if not the same, really, as what we've done before, with small variations as is the case in other sections as well. But just as in part B, we were up in this D minor section, we're going to stay up there for part C. So we'll be in D and then the E position. So same positions as in part B. So if we take a look at measure 23, we see that, again, it's the same pattern rhythmically and pitch-wise, meaning the particular notes, as we've had before. So this should be a bit of review in many ways. So measure 23, we have D, F, A, F, and then we move our hands just one string up so that we can play E, G, B, and G again. And this is the proper rhythm of that. Again, just for you to hear it. Okay. And again, we see that again like in measure 25, 27, and 29. It's the same thing in every way possible. Okay, so you've already learned half of the left hand in this section, which is nice. All right, so now that we've looked at what is the same, let's look at some of the measures that have a little bit of variation to them. So measure 24, the first part, the first four notes are what we've already played. We have that D, F, A, F again, in the same rhythmic pattern. Excuse me. The only difference is that we will not move up to the E position after that. We'll simply hit our D4 again. So this is measures 23 and 24 together. One more time so you can hear that. All right. Then we're going to skip 25 since that's the same as what we've already done, and look at 26. Again in the D position. It's a different rhythmic pattern, so let's do the notes first. We have D, F, and A again. But rather than going back down to the F, we skip right down to the D. So again, that's D, F, A, D. And the rhythm for this will simply be. So let's put that with measure 25 so we can hear that difference. Okay. Now I'm actually going to stop there because, and this is, let me back up, this is something I would encourage you to do in general, is when you're looking at a particular section of music, after you've already sectioned it off, look for any repetition that's in there. It will be just a nice way to conceptualize the piece in a way that I think is very helpful. So if we take that into practice and look at this section, we can see that measures 27 and 28 are the same as 23 and 24. And then in the same way, measures 29 and 30 are the same as 25 and 26. So another way to say that would be to say that measures 23 through 26 in the left hand are the same as measures 27 through 30. So I'm going to go ahead, and that means we've covered all the content already on this left hand. The right hand will also have many, many similarities with a few little differences. But I'm going to go ahead and utilize our metronome. I think we had it at 100 or thereabouts last time. See how loud we're at. Okay. So I am going to have it at 100 beats per minute. You want to make sure that it says 6 beats because this song is in 6/8 time. Different apps do it in different ways, but in regards to how it indicates this, but you might have 6 little lines, or it should basically beep 6 times, and say somewhere on there beats equals 6 or beats :6, something like that. If you're confused about how to use that metronome, you're welcome to reach out to me personally about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do all of measure C with the left hand only with the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that is the left hand. Get comfortable with that. It should come fairly easily for you because we've had this pattern and this rhythmic pattern and notes pattern throughout the piece. So let's take a look at the right hand now. I'm going to start again with those pickup notes in measure 22. Pickup note simply means that it's notes in the previous measure that's part of the phrase for the upcoming measure. So for example, in measure 23, we have this whole long phrase that we start a whole new section of the piece. But the E and the C in measure 22 are a part of that. And perhaps if you listen to the piece, or even as you're playing, you can hear that if we were to section off the different parts just from listening to what phrases belong together, you will hear that this really it's sort of a bridge between the two, but it really belongs to section C. Okay, so we've ended on D5 in part B, and we're going to begin part C again with E5 and C5. In measure 23, we have D, F, D, E, G, E, and then in measure 24, we have F and D. Now I'm going to stop there because, again, we have E and C as pickup notes to measure 25. So here's how this sounds in the proper rhythm. Again. I'll do that with the metronome so you can hear those rhythms in comparison to the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let's go ahead and keep going. We see that in measure 24, we again have E and C. And there's a lot of repetition here. We still have D and F and D, so that's the same as what we just did. And then we move up still to the E, but rather than going up to the G and back to the E, we only go to the F and E. So measure 25 is D, F, D, E, F, E, and then measure 26 back down to the D again. So here in the proper rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Same rhythm, almost exactly as the previous few measures, with a slight variation at the very end there. Okay, go ahead and put those together on your own. So I would, if I were in your shoes, I would be playing pickup notes to 23 all the way through 26, excluding the EC pickup notes in 26. So let's take a look again. We again see patterns. If we're looking at pickup to measure 27, again we have CE. And let's just take a look. This looks very familiar, right? 27 is actually the same thing as 23, also in the right hand. So not just the left hand, but the right hand as well. So we repeat this. So what I would do at this point is to go ahead and play the pickup to 23 all the way through 28. Again, excluding the pickup notes, which in this case now are D and E. So let's go ahead and finish this section before putting it all together with the right hand and then both hands together. So in measure 28, we've just ended on the D. And we're going to repeat that D, go up to the E, F, back down to E, F, keep traveling up to G, F, G, and A. So here's how this sounds with the proper rhythm. Pickup notes to 29 plus measure 28. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that little phrase leads up to our what's called our tonic note, A, and will lead us very nicely back into section A, which repeats itself here following section C, starting in 31. So you can kind of see here how it builds, hits that top A, and then we'll settle back into the pattern. Okay, so just some context there. So let's do the right hand section C all the way through. Again, we're at BPM 100. It's a bit slower than I would play the song in general, but for practice, definitely go slower, and then you can build up speed. Do not start faster than you can actually play it, because again, then you're incorporating mistakes into your practice, and it's going to be quite a bit harder to fix in the future. Okay, right hand only, section C. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, sorry, I goofed a little bit there on my traveling up. Okay, let's go ahead and put both hands together. We'll do this twice now. One, 2, 3, 4. Okay, again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that is all of section C. So again, work on that, get that section nice and comfortable, then add it in to the piece. So roadmap moment here, we'll have section A, section B, section C. Then in measure 31, we go back to section A again. And then we'll go to section D. There is a very small variation in section A, but I'm going to cover that at the beginning of part D. So go ahead and practice those through, and then I'll mention that little variation. It's in measure 40 for anyone who wants to pay close attention to that. But basically, except for that very, very small exception, you should be able to play, before moving on to part D, you should be able to play all the way from the beginning through measure 44, the first note of 45. So from the beginning through 45. Once you're there, come back for the next part, part D, and we'll continue putting the piece together. Okay, we're back for part D. And before we jump into that, as promised, we're going to take a look at the small variation that we have in part A that is repeated the second time. This is measure 40. Compare this measure to measure 10, which is the first time it comes around in part A. So you'll see that we basically add a little note, and the third time it repeats, it will add a third note to it. So I'll point that out when we're at that third repetition. But for this one, measure 40, I'm going to start actually at measure 39. I'll play it the way it's written in measure 10 first, so you can hear what you're used to playing, and then I will play 39 and 40 as is actually written, so you can hear the small variation that takes place in this. So here is this little section, but again, as is played the first time around in measures 9 and 10. So the main part is this last part. That is what changes. So here is 39 and 40. Listen to the difference. So rather than, we have, okay. Again, if you have any questions about that, feel free to let me know. But hopefully me walking through that in combination with you having the sheet music will be plenty for you to be able to discern the difference in that. Okay, let's jump into part D now. Part D runs from pickup notes in 46 through measure 53. Now this is definitely what I would call the bridge of the piece. It's different than every other part in a certain way, and it's different enough to make coming back into the more familiar parts that we've been working on a little bit more refreshed, you could say. It represents it as both new and like a coming home, which I've talked about before. Okay. Now, this section also has a number of places where if you've got a 16-string lyre, you're going to have some different notes, but I'll point those out as we go. So first, again, let's start with the left hand. The left hand is not different than we've had before. You're coming out of part A. So part A, again, has this A position, A minor, switching to G major, and back up to A minor. Part D works in the same space. So if you look at measure 46, we have that same pattern that we've already had in part A, G, and then back up to A. That last one was measure 47. So here's 46 and 47. Okay. 48, 50, and 52 are all the same as 46. So they're simply, which is again the same pattern you've been playing many, many times now in previous sections, section A in particular. Okay, so we're not going to spend more time on that. There's no need. What we will focus on are the measures that are a little bit different. So we've already done 47, 48, again we're familiar with. 49, we're still in the A position. We've come from the G position, but we'll go to the A position. And we have A skipping up to E, down to C. Again, A, E, C. Now, this measure is an example of one that, as you play it, you may end up doing something slightly different each time. And that's, in my opinion, that's perfectly okay. The reason it's different is because that right hand is also a bit different than anything we've had before. And so I tend to do syncopation, where we have the left hand and right hand playing at different times, complementary times. And this is just the specific rhythm in the left hand that complements the right hand. So I'm going to turn the metronome on, and we'll do 48 and 49 in the proper rhythm so you can hear that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Let's take a look now at the rest of the left hand. Measures 50 and 51 are the same as measures 46 and 47, so we'll continue on past that. 52 is the same that we've had before in 46, 48, and 50. So the only thing that's a little bit different is measure 53. So again, we'll have A, C, E, and A. Now we've had this pattern before already in part A, but just for purposes of clarity, let's do 52 and 53. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now let's put all the left hand together. Part D, left hand, the whole thing through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now let's switch to the right hand. With the right hand, I'm going to do the 19 string notes, and then I'll articulate the 16 string notes. Okay, it's only a couple of them, but it's enough to make a note of. All right, so for the 19 string, we're going to start all the way at C, that top note. Then we have B. These are our pickup notes. So C, B. Then measure 46, we have A, G, E, D, E, G. We'll pause there. If you've got a 16 string, rather than C and B at the beginning, you will have E and G. So for you, it will be E, G, A. That A being the first note in measure 46. And then everything else is the same from there in this little section that we've done. So let's do pickup notes to 46 and the first half of 47 with the metronome. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Again, practice this as you need to. If I do everything twice, this will be a very long video, so I'll only do the full sections twice on these. All right, let's look at what we've got next. We've got pickup notes to 48, and we have the same notes. C, B, and even 48 is the same as 46. So again, we have The difference comes in the following measure, measure 49. We do go back up to the E again, but rather than traveling up to the G, we go from the E to the A. Sorry, that was a little loud. So here is this section. Pickup notes to 48 plus the first half of 49. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Following that, we have C and B again. And this whole section from the pickup notes to 50 through the first half of 51 is exactly the same as what was at the beginning. So all the way from C, B at the end of measure 49 through the G, the first G in measure 51 is the same. So we won't repeat that, and let's just look at what is new as we finish off this section D, and then we'll do the right hand all together. Hopefully that will help piece everything together. So the pickup notes to measure 52 are E and G, which are the same notes that you will have ended on earlier in that measure 51. So we go from E, G, up to A, down to G. If you've got a 19 string, you then continue to A, then B, all the way up to C, and back to A. If you have a 16 string, you will also begin with C and G. You will continue to A and G. This is all the same. The difference comes in this next note. So after the G, rather than going up to your A, you will instead go down to E, D, then back up to G, and ending also on A. So here is pickup notes to 52, measure 52, and then 53. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now we'll do right hand, entire section of D. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, once you've got hands separate, comfortable, we'll put them together. And again, as I said before, I would encourage, once you have the right hand and left hand separately, even, for example, from measures 46 to 48, I'd put them together then, rather than doing this whole section with them separate. I mean, it's a pretty small section, so it wouldn't be a huge deal. But maybe I'd split it in half or in thirds, and put the hands together that way as well. Practice more with the hands together than separate, very slowly, and that will be a more efficient use of your time and energy, because that's how you want to end up playing in the long haul anyways. Okay, so let's play the whole thing through both hands. I'll play this twice. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that is all of section D now. All right, so I'm going to pause there, let you take your time with part D, and then we're going to come back and talk about how everything goes together and some small places where there's a little bit of a difference, and then we'll conclude it with putting it all together and playing the whole piece. Okay, we're back. We're going to spend a few minutes looking at the roadmap of this piece to make sure it's very clear. I have also unfortunately recognized that I made a little bit of a mistake on sectioning off the pieces. So I will make this adjustment to the first part, the first video that I did as well in the comment or in the description. But I basically said that one section repeats that doesn't and mistaked it for another one. Okay, so let's start. Well, let me just tell you what that is, and then I'll put it in context. So I had told you that part C repeats itself, that it plays the first time from measures 23 through 30, and then again from 54 to 61. That is incorrect. Part C only plays once. Rather than part C repeating, part B repeats itself once. So part B plays from 15 to 22, and then it plays from 54 through 61. So basically I named 54 through 61 as part C rather than part D. So that's really the only little goof I had there. I apologize for that. And so with that, let's go ahead and mark out the rest of the piece in regards to what are the different sections. So we have part A followed by part B. That will take us all the way to measure 22. Then we have part C, followed by part A. That part A repetition starts in measure 31, and we have one little variation in measure 40, which we've already covered. We then have our bridge, which is part D, and we come back to part B repeated. This is measure 54 through 61. There is a small difference here in what this looks like, and we'll come back to that. Where's my pencil? There we go. It will be at the very, very end in measure 61. There's a small difference in part B in the way that that's repeated. Okay. After part B is repeated, we go to part A, but it is the second half of part A. And so let's take a look at what we're talking about there. If we go to the first time that part A is played, I had mentioned this in the first video, that we could have sectioned off measures 1 through 6 as its own distinct part, and 7 through the end, its own distinct part. But I put them together because they're quite short. And so when we're repeated again in measure 62, so again, we played section C for its second time, and then what we jump into is the second part of section A, and this is the equivalent of measure starting at measure 7. So it's this part of the piece. Okay, that's where we jump into. We also have a variation in the same spot. I mentioned this before. We have a variation in the same spot that we did the second time part A was repeated. Again, I'll come back to this. This is in measure 65. Then we have a final variation, from measures 68 through 72. There's some extra repetition there because it's the end of the piece. It adds a little bit of drama to it. Again, I will come back to that in a moment. And then finally, the beginning of part A is repeated for a third time starting in measure 72 all the way to the end. There's a small variation at the very end of the piece. Okay. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the roadmap of the piece. Now let's go back. And in this section of the video, I would like to cover the parts that are a little bit different, and then we will finish up with an entire run through of the piece. Okay, so the first variation is in measure 61. If we compare this to the first time part B is played, we can see that the measure leading up to it, measure 21 and measure 60, those are the same. But the first time this is played, we just end on this D. And then we have our pickup notes for part C. Okay. The second time it's played, we also end on the D, but our pickup notes back into part A second half is a little bit different. Rather than it being E, C, it's going to be D, C, E. So let me play measure 60, 61, and 62 so that you can hear how this transition happens. Okay. Oh, I'm going to be up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me play that again for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's the first variation. Now let's roll ahead to that second half of part A, which is the next section. We're going to look at measure 65. So 65 compared to measure 10 compared to measure 40. This is all the same section, except we add another little kind of phrase in there. So here is 64 and 65. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me show this in comparison to the other two versions. So here's measure 9 and 10. Here is, what was that number? 39 and 40. And here's 64 and 65. Let me do that one more time, my finger caught. Okay. Now the final variation before we get to the very, very end is in measures 68, 69, and 70. So let's compare this to the end of part A that we've had before. Excuse me, right here. So for example, in measures 43 and 44. In 43 with the right hand, we had that's what we've had both times before. And now we have something really similar in 68, 69, and 70, but it's basically repeating itself a couple times again to add some drama. So again, for the 19th string, we have C, B, A, down to G, A, B, and rather than finishing the phrase, we start it again. A, C, B, A, G, A, B. So those two measures are the same. We repeat it a third time. A, then up to C and measure 70. B, A, down to G, A, B. So that's all the same. There's the difference where we have G and then A. We finally finish it. So let me give you a sense of how this actually feels in context. Again. Okay. So very similar to what you've played before, but again, with a little bit extra drama. If you've got a 16th string, these notes are going to be different. Instead of beginning on the C, you're going to start on the G. So we'll have G, drop down to E, D, C, D, E, D, and then repeat the pattern. But on A, starting on A, we'll have A, down to E, D, C, D, E, D. That's what we've had before. And then one more time, A, E, D, C, D, E. And then you'll end the same way as the 19th string with G and A. Okay, the final difference in this section is a few notes that we have in measure 72. These are pickup notes. They bring us back, they add a transition into section A, repeated for a third time. And these notes are simply E, D, C, before you then go back into. So I'm going to play 68 through 73 so you can understand how this whole thing works together. This is all just a transition section. Okay, so that's that transition. That's the the spot of the place of greatest difference that we have thus far in a repeated section. Okay, and then finally, let's take a look at the very, very end. Let's start at measure 79. Now this is really similar to what we've had before. But usually we've traveled up, so it's been like this. But because we're trying to conclude the piece, I don't do that at the very, very end. Rather, measure 79 is repeated in measure 80, and then for the first half again in 81. So here's how it sounds. So notice we don't travel anywhere up here. Okay. We keep it down low towards the tonic. And in measure 81, again we've done. And the way that it ends, we're going to slow down at this point. Once we've hit that D, we then go to C, and we'll do a little triplet between the B, C, and B, so it'll sound like this. and then we'll end on that A before the very, very final note. Let's do 79 through 81. Okay, that was everything except the very final note. So that final measure 81, we have again in our left hand that A position. And then we just end with an A minor chord. We have A and C in the left hand, and then we cover the E with our right hand and A. So I'll do measure 81 and 82. All right, and then that is the end of the piece. Okay, so practice all those little sections. Again, do them at your own pace and then insert them back into that particular section. For example, we have a variation in part C when it's repeated. So practice that variation, but then add it back into and practice the transition from section C to section A and a half is how I have it written, the second half of A. And then the variation in A when it's repeated in measure 65, practice that variation, insert it back into that whole place. And then the whole transition in measure 68 through 72, practice that, and then insert it back into that transition. Okay? And once you've got all those little variations, you have a whole piece. You should be able to put it all together. Again, utilize a metronome, go slowly with it, be patient, and hopefully enjoy the whole process. And once you've got that, we're going to come back and play the whole piece through. Okay, we're going to play the whole piece through now. I am not going to utilize a metronome. I'll go up to speed, but I am going to be reading the sheet music, so I'm going to have a few probably little pauses here. I'm using that because I want to stay as faithful to it as I can, because this has changed a little bit for me in some of the ways that I play it. All right, so we're going to go all the way through. I will try to name the sections when we get to them, but we'll see. My mind can only handle so much at once, so here we go all the way through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or B. This is part C. Back to A. part D. Part B. Part A. Part A, of course. Last part. Okay, give me a moment. I'm going to adjust the camera and have concluding thoughts. Okay, I hope you have enjoyed the tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed learning the piece. Again, let me move this up. Again, if you have any suggestions about ways to improve the visual or audio quality of the videos, I'd be happy to take that into consideration. If you've got any questions about this particular piece or any others, you're welcome to put a comment on the video or reach out via email, whichever you prefer. And I wish you all the best in your lyre playing. Again, I hope you enjoy the piece, and I hope you enjoy all that you're doing with your lyre. Thank you so much. God bless, and may the peace of Christ be with you.